Hello and welcome to a new episode of That Fertile Feeling, the podcast. And I'm here today with Eleni Papageorgiou, who is actually a listener of the show. We started to connect over the course of the last year. It was so great to get her feedback because I feel that's one of the issues for podcasters is you're just putting your story out there all the time without getting a lot of response because you just put it online, right? And then people listen to it, but hardly anyone ever reaches out. So it was so great to hear from Eleni that she thought the podcast was useful. Uh, yeah, that it helped her on her fertility journey. And while we were chatting, I realized that she made some really big steps in her life on that fertility journey that might be really inspiring for other listeners too. So thank you, Eleni, for coming on the show.
Oh my God, it's such a pleasure. I'm such a fan. It's so great to be here with you today.
Oh, that's so nice to hear. Can you tell us a little bit more about who you are and what you do?
Yes, of course. I'm Eleni. I have lived in different places over the years, but in the last 5 years, Scotland is my home.
Mm,
And I am a medical doctor. I'm a pediatric surgeon, and I'm also a yoga teacher. I've been practicing yoga for so long that I made it official a couple of years ago. So, yes.
and you're on a fertility journey.
And yes, of course, as if you can ignore that. Yes, and I am on a fertility journey in the last year and a half.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And how has that been for you? Is there anything you want to share about that?
Sorry, the journey.
Yeah, yeah.
The journey. Yes, that journey has been the most transformative journey of my life so far. Both myself and my partner were surgeons, so these alpha personalities. So we thought we have a goal, we will
Mm,
achieve it. And then, the universe came and said, yes, but you have to learn some things in the way.
mhm,
So it has been not, it has, I'm honoring the journey. I realized the lessons that I've learned, I had to learn them. Um, it has been challenging at times
mhm,
and very hopeful at other times. But I've learned about embodiment.
mhm,
That was one of my major lessons. Before that, I didn't even know what is the womb space. I mean,
mhm,
I know how uterus looks like,
mhm,
but I could not connect to the womb space, or I could not have that um, acknowledgement of how my body actually feels all the feels.
mhm,
And this led to a lot of changes. Even my yoga practice changed, um, to the point that I'm now going to take on 300 hours training on a womb oriented yoga.
mm.
And I'm really excited about that,
Wow.
with the Shakti Yoga School. And alongside this process, um, I also met the divine feminine, and I've learned to work with goddess archetypes, and also, because this has been happening for millennia, right? So
Mhm,
it is really soothing to know that, there is so much in the history and mythology and that can connect us to all these feminine archetypes that have been having the same challenges for so
mhm.
many years. Um, yeah, and last but not least, this is going to be a word that you will hear probably a lot from me, is surrender,
Mhm.
um, and trust. Yeah.
There's so many things I want to pick up on.
Yes.
I just keep getting goosebumps when I listen to you. The part where you say that this has been such a transformative journey, and that's actually one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you on the podcast because obviously that's my own message as well. But I also have to acknowledge that in the end, I had kids,
Yes.
so it can be. I know that I was where you were right
Yeah.
now. And that's the place that I speak from. But still, I think it can be really easy for someone to sort of dismiss it and say, well, you have children now, so it's very easy for you to say this.
Mm.
Um, And the fact that you asked me, like, shouldn't I come on the podcast, once I get pregnant? And I thought,
Yeah.
no, it would be so much more powerful to hear from you now because you're still in the midst of
And then,
all.
I realized, because you have been a conflict zone journalist, right?
Mhm,
It is one thing, and then I realized probably that's why you asked me that, because it's one thing to report when you're in the midst
mhm.
of the situation, and then it's a different thing to report when, in retrospect. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I'm happy to be here today.
So I really got goosebumps when you said I am actually living that transformation right now, and it's not an easy journey. It's probably one of the hardest, but that's also
Yeah.
why there's so much transformative potential there. And I loved what you were saying about mythology as well.
Yes.
It's actually something I'm picking up myself at the moment, really diving into Dutch. So I'm from the Netherlands. So diving into Dutch mythology, finding my way back to my roots and seeing how much ancestral wisdom is even in things like fairy tales. Once you start learning how to read fairy tales and seeing like there's so many deeper layers of meaning there that can really,
Absolutely.
guide you, because in the end, all fairy tales are initiations, really. It's about
Yeah.
the journey. You mentioned,
And
oh yeah, go ahead.
sorry, and it's so interesting to see how mythologies from any culture um, have something to say about that journey on fertility.
Hmm.
Um, there's so much, and if you start going down the road, it is a fascinating journey.
Is there a particular like myth or goddess that has been your ally on this journey?
Yes, a couple, really, because I'm Greek. I do feel really close to Artemis,
Hmm.
who is also the goddess for fertility and the moon and the cycles. But really, it is Inanna. Really,
Inanna?
it is Inanna. Yes. And can I share a story
Yeah,
shortly?
yeah, yeah. Go ahead.
And there is this. Inanna is the uh, Sumerian goddess of fertility, but she's also a warrior goddess. And there is this very famous myth of Inanna that she needs to travel the 7 gates of the underworld to reach her sister. And alongside this journey, she's dropping her armor and she reaches the underworld naked,
Hmm.
and she comes victorious from the underworld then. It is a little bit more complicated, the myth, but this is a very shortened version. And so I just had this revelation once that it was, usually those ideas come to me unexpected. But, I was walking to yoga and I realized, oh my God, this fertility journey, this is like Nana's myth, because you need, and what I felt for myself, but also I think it's relevant for everyone. It's like I had to drop expectations and ideas and time frames and timelines and societal pressures and everything alongside that journey. So it felt like I was meeting a gate and at every point I had to drop something.
Hmm.
And then I'm just standing there now. I'm standing there and I'm ready for this to happen. I'm ready to welcome my baby. But it's all the lessons that I had to learn in the way
Hmm.
that I will come out of this journey in as a not a different person, but a better version of myself.
Hmm.
Um, yes. So that's why Nana is very much resonating with me.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, she definitely came up on the show before, because that's such a powerful myth of embracing darkness and or even moving to the darkness.
Totally. And also, in the midst of my grief, I remember that one guided meditation we did together, that he guided me into the underworld again. And I danced in the underworld fire and I was just burning
Hmm.
my feelings. That to me, again, was so, close to Inanna's myth.
Hmm.
And this for me was like a quantum leap, quantum jump to,
Hmm.
just get out of the grief. So it
Hmm.
was so amazingly efficient.
I love that you say that, the quantum leap. I always describe like those guided journeys as it's like opening a door to a new reality, a new way of being you. And once you've experienced that, then you know how to get there.
Yes.
That's what I love about the trans journeys.
Yes. Ever since it's different. Yeah. It
Yeah.
doesn't take as long anymore.
And so you mentioned a couple of things that changed in your life. First, you mentioned surrender and trust. So that is
Yes.
something that's very, very much present for you right now.
It is very much present. It is just knowing that not everything is under control and that life unfolds in its own, timing, and trust that there is a reason for that. But I had to, consciously and unconsciously, changes happened in my life. For example, I used to work on 150% capacity, and I realized that that needs to change. So I reduced my hours and I'm back to 100% capacity. And also on a rest, right? Like not thinking that rest is something we need to earn, but essentially it is a birthright. So just honoring that as human beings we deserve rest. So that has been a major shift in my reality after many years of being a surgeon. Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's what I wanted to ask you. Like, it's one thing to say this, but I have a lot of friends who work in a medical profession, so I can imagine that this was actually quite hard to achieve within the boundaries of work life, of the way the
Yes.
medical system is set up.
Yes. I'm truly grateful that I have very many amazing colleagues. It has not been easy. Even for me, it has not been easy. I had to understand where I'm at, and it came with a lot of discussions during coaching and therapy. But once I realized what my priorities are, and currently my priority is this journey, then the rest just falls in place.
And I think, and that's also the beauty of your journey, or many of our journeys, I think by doing that, you're also setting an example for other people in your profession.
I would hope so. Meaning that I do think it is important to stop being in this, rigid world. And, there's so many women practicing medicine currently that I think it is an inevitable change.
Yeah.
It will come eventually, yes.
Yeah, but this is how it starts, right? It's about like
Yes.
people like you showing there needs to be a different way. And just imagine this is what you've shown your colleagues that, and maybe they're not on a fertility journey, but whenever else they, whenever they
Yes, but
encounter
everyone
something like,
has their own battles, right?
yeah, yeah,
So it is important that we show up for people when they're fighting the battles one way or another.
yeah. And I
Yeah.
think that's what you're showing them right now is there's, even at work, there's space for that, where that
Yeah.
can be created. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you mentioned that you're a type A alpha personality,
yes.
both you and your partners. Do you see a change in that right now, or is that some?
Yes. Oh, even that, this is fantastic because there is a change in that, meaning I have learned to lean more into the loved ones, the community. I have learned to receive help from people that surround me. I have dived deep into my creativity, and I'm learning versions of myself that otherwise I just didn't have the headspace or capacity to do. Even the fact that I'm teaching yoga currently, even that is a result of just easing off and be receptive to what life brings. And women's circles, right? This is a massive part of my life. And even being in a women's circle, even that is it it wouldn't have been possible before for me. Yes.
In what sense?
in the sense that, this is this amazingly nourishing, vulnerable place which is really powerful, but it is just being open, so open to other people and admit your vulnerable place, or where you are currently. Even this is, I don't know what's happening with other alpha personalities, but for me it was a no-go for quite a long time.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally recognize that. I'm a big alpha myself as well.
Yes.
And women's it all started with women's circles. That's where the changes started to happen.
Yes.
It's about,
It
because
is.
I realized the other day, like in a women's circle, what you do is actually you activate your parasympathetic nervous system.
Totally.
And that's something I just didn't know how to do. So just, you step out of that doing mode and you shift into just allowing yourself to be in the moment and slowing down. And
Yes.
it's another door, I think, that opened to another way of living.
Totally. And I was on that really amazing workshop about the shamanic dimensions of pregnancy
Mhm.
that Jane Harriet Collins was doing in Edinburgh. And what she said at that point was, so if you live somewhere that there are women's circles, join one. And if
Mhm.
there aren't, just create your own.
Create one.
It is so important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the changes for you, just to summarize: surrendering and trust,
Yes.
slowing down, honoring rest. Was there
Yes.
anything else that you feel you...
And live cyclically, which I think I kind of have been doing even before that, but now it's on a completely different level, like honoring the rhythms of my body, my menstrual cycle, my energy levels. And yeah, I find this is so important. My whole life now goes around it. Even my yoga practice, this is what I even teach. So yes, living cyclically, just live in alignment to the rhythms of my body, but also the rhythms of nature. Like right now in the midst of winter, we really should be hibernating, isn't it? So yeah.
And again, how do you integrate that at work, though? Is there space for you to live cyclically in a medical profession?
There are ways. There are ways around it, for sure. For example, when I know that I am going to be on my bleed, although our our menstrual phase is the one where we are cognitively in our power, really. I would not schedule an elective 10-hour case, for example. So there are ways around it, for sure.
Yeah. It starts by being mindful.
Yes.
Understanding the dynamics.
Yes.
Yeah, just staying with that, the fact that you are a medical professional, I was also wondering if, your fertility journey has changed how you view medicine more generally.
So I came to realize that there is the medical aspect of fertility, and then there is so much more. Like there is all the rest. And medicine plays such an important role, and evidence-based approaches, all of this is so valid, but fertility is so much more holistic than just the medical part of it. It requires so much more in terms of nutrition, holistic care, even how people are actually feeling in their bodies. So to me, what it did is respect the medical part, but also finding a completely different world of practices that are available, and just learning every day something new.
So really having that complementary approach.
Yes.
Where it's not just the purely physical medical.
No, also because we don't learn those things at medical school, right? What, as doctors, we have something, we need to fix it. So just the other part that involves emotions and spirituality. Some people are not spiritual, and that's absolutely fine, but there's their own way of dealing with that part. Even nutrition, the stress, the role that stress plays in this situation. So all those things, there are complementary specialties that deal with this and deal with this, that are addressing it, and it is wonderful. So, there is a village of people that you can get support from on a fertility journey. Yeah. So there's your medical professional, of course, but then there's the fertility coach and the fertility nutritionist. Then there is the massage therapist, the women's circle facilitator, the shamanic practitioner, the medical herbalist. There's so much more that you can bring on. Yes.
Yeah. It's actually like one of the, I always end the podcast by asking, my guests what their main message is. And I remember one nutritionist saying, know what you can expect from your doctor and don't expect everything from your doctor. So know what you can get there in the medical field, and then also find that additional support system.
Yeah, and that is important. You can't expect one person to play all the roles.
Yeah.
It's not fair on the person.
How do you find the balance though between doing everything and really knowing what it is that you need to add to that support package, to that support circle?
Oh my goodness. I think there's one thing I think everyone needs to go through their own journey to find the balance. Like at the beginning, I was just, not worrying, but at the beginning it was like, I can do this and this and this and this and this and this and this. And then the next phase was actually surrendering. People have been telling me from the beginning, you need to surrender. But it had to come through my own experience. So then there's the surrendering. And then this is where I started to realize, okay, so let's see, where is the balance here? And then the next step from surrender was bliss, that the trust, essentially. So I am not sure whether there is a recipe for that for everyone. I think people have to trust their own journey on that.
And you mentioned surrender, and it sounds so beautiful, that transition you made. What was it that helped you surrender? What were some of the tools that showed you the way?
I think it was a combination of all the tools. And it was the coaching that was really, really helpful. It is the grounding and coming back to the breath. It is rituals that you might find that are helpful. There's certainly rituals that I find really helpful and I'm implementing increasingly in my everyday life. And then it's the community and the loved ones, and people who are there, and you can lean into them. Yeah. So yeah, I think this is just a few examples.
Yeah, so it sounds like there's no clear blueprint, but it's really about taking the journey seriously and not the journey beyond just the getting pregnant, but actually everything that you're going through, everything that's happening to you, that you create space to process that and be with that. And
and this is so important. Another lesson was that just feel the feelings, they're valid. Make space for all the feelings, and just make space to process them. Don't just put them under the carpet and wait that they disappear.
And what are some of the tools that you use now when whenever you find that the fertility journey is really hard? What's sort of your main fallback mechanisms?
So the underworld meditation we
Mm,
spoke about, the quantum leap. No, well, it is that. It is the stillness and meditation and the ritual. It is nature. Nature, I find that grounding in nature helps amazingly because it comes alongside with movement. So just get out there and move your body and feel alive again and take some deep breaths and ground and feel the trees in the ground supporting you and the ocean. And you know what I also found that helps me in a situation like that is, again, this is in the realm of the embodiment and connecting the feelings to the body.
mm,
It has been abdominal massage, which again, it has been a new thing for me. And
mm,
I realized this is so amazingly helpful to just connect again to your body. And uh, at a point where you are in conflict with your home space, for example,
mhm.
just bringing that love back there, this I find quite beautiful.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Abdominal massage is so powerful.
So powerful.
Yeah.
It's like,
Um,
why don't we learn those things at school? you
yeah.
know
Like we used to. Well, not at school, but this is like these are ancient practices, right? That we used to
yes.
learn from our mothers, our grandmothers. And I just realized, so I became a practitioner last year, an abdominal therapist.
Mm,
So I also started my own practice. And I was just thinking, like last night, how when I started, I was afraid to touch my belly
yeah.
because there was so much there, also physical. Like I've had some tearing during my pregnancy, so it was scary to start connecting to my belly. And then at a certain point, it became routine, and I would just put on an episode of Friends at night, and I would do the massage. And then I thought, okay, I've been doing this for a while. I need to go in really hard to really get everything moving. So I was totally not respecting my body's boundaries at all, not even like sensing into the boundaries. So obviously I got another injury and my liver actually really
Oh
didn't
my
want to be
god.
touched anymore. It swelled up really. So like, okay. And now
Another lesson learned.
another lesson learned. And now I'm at a stage where I don't even want to watch Friends anymore because I want to feel what my body is telling me, and I can really, like, there's so much enjoyment there in following my body's cues and also going into the
Yeah.
much deeper energetic layer. And the funny thing is, like, I have a much lighter touch now, and I can actually feel my organs respond so much more than when I was just pushing
Going
through,
for it.
because now it's like in alignment with what the body is telling me. So,
Yeah.
and I teach this, right? So it's also interesting to see how you keep developing your own practice as well. I'm sure you have the same with yoga, is that yeah, there's always a
Absolutely.
new layer to discover.
I mean, with all the respect to Friends, which is also my favorite program of all time,
Mm,
I do think that this is something almost, this is a ritual on its own, the abdominal massage,
yeah.
especially if you are aiming to connect with your body and your womb space. So when I do it, it is genuinely like a ritual for me. Yes,
Mm,
and I have the oil that smells, beautifully, and the whole setting. So
yeah.
yeah, it's like a treat.
Yeah. And I kept hearing during my training about people who would have operations, people who practice abdominal therapy who would have operations, and the doctors being like, what's going on? It looks so good inside of you. Like everything's
Wow,
so healthy. So that's such a good motivation
impressive.
for me. It's really,
Yeah,
like you said, we should be taught this at a really young age.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And what's the next step for you now on your journey? Do you want to share? Are you in
Um,
treatment? Are you?
so it is. You mean the next step on my fertility journey, right?
Yeah, yeah.
It is. I haven't quite decided yet. In my heart, I know that there is this baby waiting for me. And also, although I'm a surgeon myself, I really don't like intervention in my own body.
Mm,
So I think the next step will be a decision as to whether we now proceed to receiving medical help and looking into IVF options, or whether we persevere a little bit longer. But definitely the IVF discussion is now on table. And I'm grateful that it is there, and I'm not sure it is quite my journey yet. So I don't want to rush it. It has to feel right. So yeah.
I love that, also following your intuition there.
Yeah.
So that you're really open also, right? When you go in for IVF, that you are completely open with that. That is what you're doing.
Exactly, because you don't want to go there and feel completely be in a really low frequency of emotions, and it's not going to be the right thing, is it?
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for a beautiful conversation.
Thank you.
As I mentioned, I always have this final question: what your general message would be for anyone who's experienced or who's dealing with fertility issues or loss?
Oh my God, there's a lot that I could say. I'll try to be short. Number one would be to feel all the feelings. Just allow space for that to happen, and give yourself permission to process. Another one, which I think is quite powerful, and people have been saying this to me, and I only recently let it sink, is that you are not tied to the outcome. You are worthy, powerful, whole, deserving, regardless of the outcome. And there is no timeline. Like there is not a time frame for that. It evolves the way it evolves. And lastly, lean into support, whether this is loved ones, community practices. It is quite powerful to be held.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And do you also hold women? You mentioned that you work as a yoga teacher. So outside of your regular job, are there ways in which women could work with you?
Yes, I do. I do teach cycle synced yoga and fertility yoga, and it just started because I realized had I found someone who did it, I would have wanted it for my own journey. So the way that I offer the practice, it is online and on a one-to-one basis, so that people can keep their privacy if they wanted. And it's the yoga practice, the asana practice, but then I finish the practice with a goddess meditation that it is relevant to the phase of the cycle and the fertility journey. Yes.
And where can people find you?
The name is Devi Loka. It means the plane of the goddess in Sanskrit. I'm on Instagram and my website, and yeah, it's very easy to touch base with me.
And your Instagram handle is, I think, Devi_Loka. Right?
Devi_Loka_. And the website is devi/loka.co.uk.
Okay. Well, I'll put it all in the show notes so listeners can find you. Thank you so much for a beautiful conversation.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
And best of luck on the rest of your journey.
Thank you.
And to the listeners, also thank you for tuning in this week. If you want to reach out to me, you can find me on Instagram at thatfertilefeeling or email me at francoise@thatfertilefeeling.com, just like Eleni did. I always love to hear from you, and I always get back to you, and hope to see you back in 2 weeks. Bye-bye.